Go ahead.
After watching Tyler for a couple of years, what have you noticed differently about him this year?
It started to see him progressing last year, just how he operates in the pocket and how he gets through his progressions. He's still dynamic as anything, as far as being able to move, get outside the pocket, create. But I think, you're seeing him, grow like any quarterback, and he has the arm strength he always has. He's had the mobility he always has. But like seeing how he can work through his progression and make all those throws and has improved.
A guy like Harrison added, just what has that done to their offense?
Excuse me?
Adding Harrison.
Oh, yeah. I mean, really good route runner. He's obviously polished. And, they've got really a lot of weapons, along with, obviously, Connor in the run game and McBride. I think he should be getting him back. He's a really good young tight end. And then even Wilson on the other side. I just think they have a balance of weapons, starting at the quarterback spot that makes them, a tough team to go against. And they run the ball really well. They have an identity, and that's what they want to do. You can see it with how many yards they get, how many carries they desire to get, what seems like. And shoot, they did it to us last time they played us.
I don't know if there's a way to quantify this, but how well is Diomedor Lenore playing now that he knows exactly what he's going to be doing every week? Because last year, there's a lot of different guys in the nickel and all that. But how well is he playing?
He's improved a ton. I think he's playing great. And you said it really good, actually, that it's hard to quantify if you're just looking at stats. Like a lot of people, you don't realize it until you actually really watch the tape and understand what he's doing for us and what he allows us to do defensively. Really pleased with Demo.
How's Malik Mustafa looking to you? You guys played him 62 snaps last week.
He did a great job. Huff couldn't go, and he stepped in and did great.
Fred Warner has been playing lights out every game, but now he's dealing with an injury. He's been kind of, not really in practice so far. What are you kind of doing to kind of counteract dealing with that this week against the Cardinals and then having a short week next week?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really counteract. It's just next man up, and you'll never fully replace Fred. I mean, not saying we are. It's just, the next guy's got to practice and he's got to operate. And, we've had some injuries and guys have had, there's adversity and there's opportunity. So with that, the next guy gets a chance and they step up. And you saw that even losing Grave. And, we've had guys step in and like Campbell play and, not having Law. I mean, there's been different. And like you just asked about Malik Mustafa playing without having Huff. Huff's played one game. So guys get opportunities and we expect them to perform. And they expect themselves to, too. So at practice, that's really where you get those reps and, hone your skills. And with Fred and without Fred, you got to communicate. And guys are doing that.
What has impressed you most about Okuano?
Strong. What's that?
What has impressed you most about Okuano?
About who?
Okuano.
Sam.
Oh, gosh. See, Sam O. See, we were just, Sam O. He impressed me a ton last year, actually, just watching him in. Even it's tough with D linemen, and I think we might have talked about this in the offseason because they're not going against anybody. But with Sam, you could see, I was excited seeing just watching him in his individual and how explosive he was. So that's one thing you want to see with D linemen is how explosive they are, especially ends, because you can kind of project, like, what's this guy going to do against an O lineman? Can he get off the ball? And then with that explosion, is he going to be able to set an edge and be as violent as you would expect based on what you're seeing? So now we get to training camp, and he's starting to do it. Then he gets hurt, so you don't fully get to see it. So now we're getting to see him do it in the games. I'm not surprised. I'm pleased. But this is kind of what we imagined he could be, based on what he had shown us in a short amount of time because he got here late in the year last year. So with him playing hard, being explosive, and just being himself, it's been really cool to see.
Does your confidence grow in him with every practice rep?
Absolutely. Like I said, it was he got here, and then you saw him in the spring, and then in training camp he was doing a nice job and got injured pretty quickly, and you lost all that time. So with him, he's still growing. I mean, he's still young to football. His story's a pretty cool story about how he came here. I think he was 12 or 13. But he's still new to football, and he keeps growing and keeps getting better. So I think with him, he's got a really high ceiling.
Bosa got about 9 pressures last game.
Yeah.
He didn't get a sack until about 2.5 minutes left in the game. Was that him wanting to stay in to get that sack? What was the to reward him for a hard day's work?
No, I think he just missed like 3 of them. I think it was, I mean, he was in there and where he was finishing the game. I don't think it was anything like that. I mean, a lot of times the other guys cleaned it up, but, Nick can always get better. He could have finished those. We knew going in that when you watched Brissett, he was like, I was getting flashbacks of Roethlisberger. It wasn't just the number either. It was just the way he moved, and we knew it was going to be tough, and we had to get guys like the second guy to get there, and to, you always want a strain to finish, but it was visible with Brissett. So it was tough that he fell off a few times, and it was good that he got it at the end.
Kyler's almost an opposite because he can escape a lot
Right.
easier.
With him, you're not touching him. With Brissett, a lot of times it was, he can get off and he can break tackles. I mean, Kyler can too, but with Kyler, it's tough. It's tough. He's extremely dynamic, really, really quick.
When you're putting together a game plan and the other team doesn't know who you're going to be lining up there at linebacker, specifically Fred, are there certain things that you think like, well, Fred's on the field, they're not going to do this, but if he's not in the field, this is an area where they might do some different things?
I mean, we'll find out, I guess, in the game. There's
Prepare for anything like that?
I mean, we're preparing for what we have, and it doesn't change a whole lot, maybe a little bit, but we'll see.
Your guess blitz rate's gone up every week. I think it started at 9. It's like at 33%. When you watch Kyler against the blitz, what does he look like? What's the challenge this week? You bring extra pressure against a guy like him.
I mean, there's always it's famine or feast with any call, really. You could think something's really good. There's always calls you want back. Oh, this would have been good there. I think offenses feel the same way. There's certain things you like if they don't do this or they do this. So I think it just depends on the situation, really, and the plan. And sometimes that does change in game based on how we are playing and our guys are playing and some of the things they're doing.
How difficult is it to contain a quarterback like Kyler in the pocket? And does rushing 5 sometimes help that effort?
Yeah, it can. Absolutely. I think a lot of guys do that. And he's hard. I mean, those guys are hard to deal with, because he does have the arm strength and he can escape like a freaking punt returner, like he's got elite quickness and doesn't have to have his feet set to throw the ball. So you have to be disciplined and you have to just keep running. You just have to keep going, regardless of who's going. Even if you got 4, 3, 5, 6, you have to keep going. And in coverage too, it's really everybody. Any of those guys that can extend plays, it's one of those track shoes type days.
It's Jair and Malik. What are some of the challenges of being a young safety in this league?
A young safety, I would say the toughest thing maybe in being somewhere new and being young is having your voice and taking control, because you do have to be a good communicator back there. And I think both of them have done a great job. I think that was something we noticed really early with Tig. He's got great command. He's very confident. He puts the time in and he's very smart. So that was something also with Malik that we saw, is that these guys they stepped right in. And Huff was the same way as a young safety. And those are really important qualities as a safety, because you're kind of back there seeing things. You got to help direct. So I think those are things you look for, guys that can lead and make calls and make sure that they're communicating across the board, because you got to get from corner to corner and everyone in between to be on the same page with the backers.
Evan Anderson progressing.
Really, really pleased with Evan. We made a decision last week, and he's consistently gotten better. And the 19 snaps he got, he did a nice job for us. Mm-hmm.
Recently been a lot made of how teams are playing 2 high safeties a lot, what it's doing to the passing game, and what it might mean for the run game. I'm curious what you're seeing when you watch, obviously, your own run game, but around the league in terms of how that's affecting things.
It's hard for me to say I notice it a trend. I'm not really. So whatever people are saying, they're saying. I look at our stuff. I look at the stuff where we've got to prepare. I look at teams that are like us, and so it's everybody decides to stop the run game different ways. Some people pressure, some people deep to short, some people show 8-man fronts, base defense. Everybody, and then most times with us, it's something different that they haven't shown. So every week there's a little bit of a variance. I think they've always been that way with Kyle. I think it's been a long time now, I think, where they just don't want Kyle to really have a beat on what they're doing. So we'll get a lot of different things sometimes, and they'll change a pace just to keep us from getting a rhythm. And
You think over the first 4 weeks in terms of teams defending you different without Christian?
Yeah, I mean, It's different. It's different. Not something I want to really talk about, but it is different. And obviously, because you have to, there's a lot of things you need to do to take care of what all the places Christian can line up. So it does kind of limit the things you can do, or it opens up your playbook a little bit when he's not out there. Because as good as JP and the other backs are, they're just not going to be able to be Christian, and that does have an effect.
In a general sense, about specifics necessarily, like how do you go about then of kind of working through that? What is that process?
Well, you already assumed that because he's not there, certain things aren't going to happen. And so certain teams aren't going to want to do certain things because Christian's in the game. You kind of know what those things are because we saw it happen when he was there, that when he showed up, all of a sudden things changed. And we noticed how defenses changed how they played us, and things that we used to see we didn't see as much. Now that he's not there, we're seeing things again that we used to see that we didn't see before, that we saw before Christian was here. So it's a balance, and then it's based on the team and their matchups. And some people can do what they do anyway. It didn't matter whether Christian was there or not. So there's so many variables to it. It's hard to just put your finger on it. I don't want to say it's they play more this, they play less that, they play more. Who knows? But it is different.
You generally have pretty good continuity on the line from last year to this year, only one new starter. Can you see that? Can you tell how that group has continued to develop and get tighter and maybe more kind of locked down?
Oh, it does. It helps a lot. And I've always, we've talked about in the past, I don't mind rotating a guy. So, it's like, well, that ruins the continuity. It really doesn't. It's still just, they practice rotating, so they get the continuity that way. It is nice when two guys can play like Trent and Aaron, and you get the continuity with Jake in there, and then obviously Colton, and now you have Dom in there, and it's a good balance. But yeah, they do have a chance to develop and get better. They do if they stay healthy and they work, and we see things week in and week out. That's the goal, and that's why winning is important, and it's very important. Obviously, it's the most important thing. We have to win these games, but within that, we have to get better every week. We all know that winning. You don't win the Super Bowl in September and October. You win the Super Bowl. You get in the playoffs. You got to win your division. There's so many steps before you get to that point. But the bottom line is, you're not judged by how many games you win in September. It helps, but you have to get better, and that's the key. The key is improving through the course of the season, learning from what's happened, drawing upon these things. So many times I'll spend more time talking about something that isn't necessarily your question. I do the same thing in my meeting room. It's like it might start us down a road of, now look, guys, this really doesn't talk about this week, but I'm telling you, this thing that we're talking about right now, it will be bigger in 6 weeks. And this thing that we're talking about, we have to build on this. So this just isn't, don't just learn this for, okay, I got this for this game plan. This is something that's going to continue to show up through the year, something that's consistently showing up that we need to continue to get better at. And there's other things that will fit along with this that we'll see as well. And that's where my job is. It's, yes, we got to win the game. Yes, we have to do everything we can to shoot all our bullets in this game. But at the same time, it's a building process. And that's for me is what's so much fun, is to kind of get guys to see the game. As I've always said, I don't want them to, I want them to own it. They should, after the game, they should walk in and say, it was them. It wasn't me. They've learned the offense, and they make adjustments themselves during the game, and they come to the sideline, they suggest things, I suggest things, but then the game, it's their adjustment, they're owning it. That's when we become a real football team. That's when on Sunday you're in the last drive of the fifth quarter of the Super Bowl, and everybody comes together to pull it off together as a group, because I can't be out there, Kyle can't be out there. They have to pull it together, and that's what's cool about having a group that's played together.
Early last year, a lot of questions about Colton McKivitz, and those questions kind of died down a little bit as the season went on. How has he come back in year two as a starter? How's he played?
Really well. I mean, he had a rough outing a couple weeks ago, and he bounced back like he has last week. He bounced back again. I remember last year, I had to have the talk with him after the Pittsburgh game. We talked about it last year, how we had a plan, and we had to get away from that plan to help him, and so we just had to take our chances with on Watt. And Watt got some sacks and stuff, and I had to make sure he's okay. Hey, the plan was to chip every time, but they went to some different coverages. We needed guys out, and so how are you? And that's the point we've said in here before, where when guys fail, when they don't have success, how do they bounce back? That's the good thing about him. He has bounced back, and he has had some up and down games. He needs to be more consistent, but he has bounced back, and I think he has learned from last season, and he's learned to accept that wasn't a good game and why. The whys behind it are very important for him, as far as, hey, I'm doing this. This is why I'm going to be. It's not any major big, like I'm not good enough, or the team. It's just I'm doing this fundamental flaw that I need to fix.
Production is for touchdowns anyway. It is down. Like I think it's 50%. Last year it was like 68. It's only 4 games. I get that. But what's making it tough for you to score? You've kicked more short field goals than you'd like, I'm sure. What makes it tougher to get in the end zone this year?
I can speak to the run game and say we're not running the ball as well down there. Whatever the looks are, whatever's been happening, I don't want to talk about, but there's been some things that just we haven't been, and I blame myself, number one. We've had a call the last 3 weeks, Minnesota, L.A., and New England. 3 calls that we made early in a series in the red zone and just were bad calls on my part to suggest, to have on the list, to even think we could run the plays, not having enough foresight to think they might do something different. And that's what they did. We had plays prepped for what we thought they were going to do. They came with something different. They were bad calls. And so, not Kyle's fault, my fault. I put them on the list as number 1 call. I said, call it, stay to the list, and then they show up with the defense. It doesn't work out. And so we end up with some, it doesn't take much, right? Red zone, there's so few possessions. All of a sudden you have 1 bad call, you're behind the 8 ball. The next play, you don't quite complete the pass, and then third down, you are where you are. So we've just had some, it's been a combination of everything. But at least it's 50%. It could be worse right now. And 68 is a very high percentage, and we need to get back to that. But again, it starts and ends, I think, with the running game. We've got to be more consistent. We've had a lot of rushing touchdowns over the last couple of years. I think we need to keep working hard at that.
They're averaging 5.7 a carry running to the right. Does Pooney and McKivitz look like they're doing a good job in the run game?
Yeah, they're doing a very good job. I love the way those guys are playing. Colt's a very good run blocker, as is Dom. They both do a good job with that, as Trent and Aaron do. We've got our guys are a good run blocking unit. I tip my hat to them. They do a nice job. They work really hard. And this organization, this offense, we take a lot of pride in trying to run the ball well. So those guys do work hard at it, and that's something that they do. And the right-left thing, I'm telling you, it can be misleading. Go the right, cut back. Maybe it's the left side's doing a better job this year. The right, vice versa, when we get all the credit to the left side getting the yardage. It's how they determine the whole hit and where the ball is. I guess it's consistent through the league, but all the guys have done it, and it's kind of a little bit of a crapshoot as to some guys do some things better than others, vice versa. But they've done a really nice job.
Really, like a lot of these guys, but he's very, very serious about taking care of himself and taking care of his body and trying to play for as long as possible. Do you have any insight into kind of his passion for that part of it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't have any details. I don't have all the details. I just know he's obsessed with it, and as he should be. If you think about it, right? I'm trying to stay healthy and stay alive long enough to keep working and do my job, But it doesn't depend on me blocking guys and tackling guys and staying healthy into my playing 15, 16, 17 years in this league. The things they have to do to stay healthy, all the different therapies, from red light therapy to, where they get to the cell thing where they do, I don't know what they call this stuff. What's that? Yeah, all that stuff. They do all that stuff. They do. The guys are, and they should be. And why wouldn't you? That's the thing. I want to call Dom. I've called Dom in and Pooney and said, this thing where you have to take care of your body over this 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 weeks, from July till possibly February, that's a lot of banging, a lot of things. You get to take care of your body, and it's cumulative. It starts now. It's year 1, then okay, what are you going to look like in year 6? And I've seen guys, veteran players, just here's the cliff, and they fall right off it if they don't take care of themselves in the offseason and properly train and properly prepare their bodies and take care of themselves. And all of a sudden, when their career ends, that decline happens fast. Kind of what's happened to me in the last 2 years. It feels like, oh my gosh, I've aged 10 in the last 2. How did all this stuff? I thought I was getting old. Now I really know it. But it truly, these guys, and I really admire how hard he and guys like Fred and him, Christian, they're obsessed with taking care of their bodies. And you think it's over the top, but it really isn't if you think about what they're trying to do. And squeezing, 1 more year out, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of money. A lot of things go into squeezing that 1 more year out. And so I really respect the guys and how hard they work to do that. It's hard. That is the thing I've said. I'm sorry, I ramble, but the guys have always said to me in the off seasons, the thing that chases guys out of this thing is the off season. The end season's great. They all want to play the games, and the games are fun, and the games are great. But all the work it takes to get ready to play that season, whether you're here for OTAs or not, it doesn't change what those Sundays are, how violent they are, how physical they are, the demand it puts on the players. And now with short weeks, long weeks, 18-game schedules, that's what gets it. Finally, they're saying, I just can't do all that anymore. And then ultimately, when they get older, it catches up with them, and they can't play a young man's game anymore. So that's the part that is really hard to do. So a guy that can do it to the extent that they do it, I'm going on because I really, really respect those guys.
Is that a testament to Trent Williams, who is now in year 15 really in the NFL, and has a veteran rest day on Wednesday, but because of that he's able to take care of his body and get extra years out of his career?
Yeah, Trent is different. Trent just is learning that all of a sudden at 30. How old is Trent now? 36. Trent is just now learning that he needs to take care of himself. I'll take one step back from that. Trent has really, since I remember when I left in Washington, he changed his diet, really changed his body, started taking care of what he ate. But Trent he's always recovered from injury faster. He's always very little treatment time, very little time doing the traditional, these things that Juice and those guys do. He looks like, what's that crap? Trent just works out and trains, and he's a phenom, right? But he's at that point down in his career that he does understand that those things become more important. So Juice has kind of brought him along on a couple things, and Trent realizes it does have some value. His is purely, he's a genetic wonder, and that vet day is what he needs, and then a couple little things here and there. But I think if he's going to make it, and he's talked about it, he's not quite bouncing back as quick as he did 6 years ago. It's just not that he's not healthy, he's not taking, it's just you're older. That ankle injury just doesn't, I get up in the morning, it's a little bit harder every morning. Same thing with him. It just eventually, after all those snaps, it does. And he's right now looks as good as I've seen. I keep saying it, he comes to problem. Like, what am I doing practicing? The guy it's just how good he is. But his is more genetic. And he's blessed with it more than it is what he's doing. Thank you, guys.